People ask me all the time what my dream pack is and what I want to see next for The Sims 4. And up until about a month ago, I probably would have told you horses, kind of as a joke because I thought we would never get horses, but also deep down I really wanted to see them. But now that we actually have a horse pack, I'm gonna have to rethink my answer. And there is one other thing that I have been desperately wanting and talking about for years, and it's hotels. I made a video like this about horses a couple years ago, and that turned out quite well for me. So with that being said, I would like to show you a little presentation I have created about all of my ideas for a potential hotel pack. So everyone, welcome to Hotels in The Sims 4, a presentation by lilsimsie. Starting off, I would like to explain why this pack is my dream pack, because this is something that I have wanted in this game for so long, and now I feel like it's at the top of my list. Hotels were one of my favorite features in The Sims 3, and I would love to have them in The Sims 4. You're gonna see a lot of comparisons to The Sims 3 in this video. Every time I talk about things I want in The Sims 4, I always go back to The Sims 3 because that was like my first Sims game. It's my favorite Sims game. I have so many fond memories of playing Sims 3 packs, and so a lot of the things that I desperately want the most are things that are in The Sims 3. And also, I feel like we kind of already have some good foundations for a hotel pack in this game. Obviously, we already have vacation rentals, but that's not really what I want out of this. I don't want to like rent and visit an entire house. I want to go to a hotel. I want to run my own hotel, and we can run quite a few different businesses. You can be a vet, you can have a restaurant and a retail store. So I don't think a hotel is that far out of an idea. So I've kind of crafted a hypothetical pack for us, and these are the main features that I'm picturing. First of all, you can own and run your own hotel business. So that means that you could buy a lot and then manage and run the hotel just like you would a retail store or anything like that. But more importantly, you can also design and build your own custom resorts. So you could just get an empty lot and then build whatever you want on it and run it as a hotel. And because in this hypothetical scenario, we would have so much creative freedom, you could just buy an empty lot and then build whatever you wanted. You could make like a giant upscale 5-star expensive resort, or you could build like a small bed and breakfast, or like a dirty old motel that's kind of run down. And aside from building and running them, you could also vacation in these hotels. This would be an alternative to renting a vacation home, and you could just go stay in a hotel room instead. And again, we'd have so much creative freedom. You could like go to some fancy resort, or you could pick like a worse one that's maybe like roach infested or something. And I have really elaborated on a lot of these main features, so we'll get to that in a second. But obviously I must address the fact that this is kind of an island paradise dupe. I basically want everything that I loved about The Sims 3 Island Paradise, but in The Sims 4 and also in 2023, so it's like, you know, better. Because The Sims 3 Island Paradise did not run that well. She's kind of famous for like not running at all. Just in case you weren't around at the time, Island Paradise has a sort of similar reputation to Wedding Stories, just because it was so laggy and glitchy when it first came out. And to be honest, it still is that way. It never really improved. I actually tried to revisit it and play it again recently, and I literally had to give up because it was crashing and lagging so much that it was actually unplayable. So yeah, I would like to have all the good things about that pack, just not that part. I want it to run better. But one of my favorite things about this is how you could get this old kind of run-down beach hotel for free, and then you could fix it up and try and make money off of it. And I loved this. It was like a built-in fixer-upper feature to the game. And you know, I used to have a whole series for like 4 years where I did fixer-upper renovations on my channel. So this is like right up my alley. I loved that part of it. And there were also all these really fancy resorts around the world, and you could like stay in them and use their spas. They had these amazing buffets and these cool pool bars. I mean, there was just so many things that I loved about this pack. So what does that mean for The Sims 4? How do we run a resort in The Sims 4? Again, I'm kind of picturing it working sort of similarly to our existing like retail or vet systems, where you just buy a lot and then you have like a little menu panel of settings. You can obviously hire staff, you can set the pricing, you'll deal with customers, or I guess in this case, guests, resort guests. We could have like a star rating feature where your guests who stay could leave ratings. And then obviously as you upgrade and improve things in your hotel, the ratings will get better. If you're higher rated, you get more money. There could be a system where if you have certain amenities at the hotel, like maybe pools or hot tubs, probably gyms and like more nice decor, that would make the hotel more likely to be rated higher. Again, works very similar to Dine Out in that way. Just maybe in this case, I'd like for it to work better than Dine Out. I was kind of envisioning a couple other like settings. settings you could pick for your resort management. Obviously, you could pick price ranges and set the price to be higher or lower. I'm thinking you could also probably pick some settings for the kind of resort that you're building. So to give some examples, maybe it's adults only, maybe you allow pets, maybe it's like a themed resort, so it's like video game themed and the guests who come there are going to be more likely to want to play in your game's arcade room. I don't know, I'm just trying to throw out concepts of things that might be fun. This might be too advanced for The Sims 4, but I would love if you could make like regular rooms, but also like suites, and then the suites are more expensive. And the buffet thing, this is kind of silly of me, but this is one of the like main things that I want out of this pack, because The Sims 3 had this really cool buffet table. We have one in The Sims 4, but it's not really what I desire out of it. So in The Sims 4, it's like that little circle table that comes with luxury party stuff and wedding stories. There's one in high school years too, actually. And on it, you can just serve food. There's like 5 slots and it just kind of appears with like 5 little items. You can pick individual things or like serve an assortment, but there's not really a lot of custom control over it. And in The Sims 3, they had a whole buffet thing at these hotels. And it was like kind of a main part of why the guests wanted to visit your hotel and why they liked it. So you had a ton of different theme settings you could pick on the table. So you could pick that it was like the breakfast table and it would have all breakfast food, or it was the kids table and it would have like grilled cheese and fries, or it was like the vegetarian table, the dessert table, the sushi table. So there was a ton of options for kinds of food to pick. And then you could also pick the quality. So it could be poor quality food that's cheaper, but obviously the guests like it less, or it could be excellent quality and they love it, but it's more expensive for you to be running. And then it comes out of your resort's like daily expenses, basically. I loved that. I loved going to the buffet and getting all of that free food, and there was just so many options for my Sims. I liked building them and pretending to run them. I really had fun with the buffets. So that to me is important. I would love to have that come back in The Sims 4, just more options basically. And because we have buffet tables already, I don't know if it would be too bad to go back and like add to them. And then when it comes to building a resort, the Sims 3 ones were kind of strange. In The Sims 3, we had these like rabbit hole resort towers that you could place. This is an example of them. So it would start off as like this little tiny yellow building on the side, and then you could pay to upgrade it and get it bigger. There was a couple style options. You can see 2 of them here. This picture, by the way, is from Carl's Sims 3 guide, legend. I'm gonna link his stuff down below so you can go back and read through it if you're curious. But yeah, you could have these rabbit holes, and they were the main part of the hotel. Obviously, as you upgraded, they would have more guest capacity. You could also upgrade them to have like features like spas in them. But when I say rabbit hole, what I mean is the Sims would just go in there and then you wouldn't see them anymore. There was a lot of buildings like that in The Sims 3, like the schools were like that, the jobs were like that. Because it was an open world, we just had a lot of rabbit holes. In The Sims 4, your Sims go to a rabbit hole for work and school too, where they just disappear for a few hours. That's how it would be with these. They would just go in there and then sleep in there and then come back in the morning. Sort of like how the bathrooms work, like the bathrooms at the park in The Sims 4. Picture that, except they're sleeping, for example. In my dream, I don't really want to have rabbit holes. I don't really want to have this. I would like to build completely custom rooms every single time. And you could do that in The Sims 3. You could have like these plus some custom built luxury suites, essentially. But I want everything in this pack to be custom. So what you would do is build your own custom building, just like how restaurants work, for example. Maybe downstairs there's a lobby and a gym or something. And then upstairs you could put hallways with little guest rooms and stuff like that. And in my dream, we could designate which ones are like the rooms, the hotel rooms, with like some sort of marker or something. The problem is I'm not really sure how that would work, but luckily that is not my job. And I am sure that they could figure out something. So in this vision, for example, maybe I want to have like a little bed and breakfast in Henford-on-Bagley. I would way rather have a tiny hotel than a complete rental lot in this world. This lot is actually a good example because maybe in this scenario, the tiny hotel only has 2 guest bedrooms, and there would be some sort of way to set this area as the guest room. So you could build your own custom little hotel room. It's got an ensuite bathroom, and then mark this as one room for the hotel guests to pay for. But then if you wanted to, maybe you could go build a giant hotel that's got like 10 guest bedrooms. So perhaps in this building, 3 of the rooms are kind of small. It's just 1 bed, 1 bathroom. But maybe there's also a couple that are a little bit bigger. Maybe they're suite style, so they have like a living room and a bedroom attached. And then maybe you could charge extra for the nicer rooms. rooms, I don't really know how that would work. I'm kind of just throwing out ideas here, but that is my dream. I want to have that level of customization. I keep talking about amenities too, things like gyms, maybe pools or hot tubs. And in my mind, all of those things would make the guests like the hotel more and therefore make it more expensive, which kind of brings me to my next point. What would the new build features be? So I'm talking about build mode here, not furniture, but like the building settings that you can use. And usually when expansion packs come out, they come with a new build feature. So think things like platforms with Snowy Escape. We got the ability to make ponds when Cottage Living came out. And in this case, I feel like the feature could be on pools. It sort of makes sense with the resort theme, and The Sims 3 had like way more detailed pool options than we do now. In The Sims 3, you could make curved pools. This is an example of one of them. I found this on Mayze's video on YouTube, which I'll link down below in case you want to go see it. It was kind of complicated to mess with, and I know I sound ridiculous talking about wanting more curved things because we all know how that turned out when we got those when High School Heroes came out, but I like the idea of making more natural rounded pools. I feel like in real life, oftentimes pools are kind of curved, and in The Sims right now, they're all straight lines, and I kind of wish we had more freedom there. So that in my head would be base game. Like everybody could adjust the pools to be curved, but I think that some of the other pool things might be like new floaties, perhaps a pool slide. We had a water slide in The Sims 3 that went into the pool, which I loved. And this is kind of a dark photo because it's The Sims 3. It all just looks like that. But we also had these pool bars in The Sims 3. And this is basically an item that sits on the floor and goes kind of underground, and it snaps to the edge of the pool. You can kind of see a staircase right here, but the bartender would walk down the stairs and stand here, and there's little seats in the pool, and your Sims could swim up, sit down there, and order a drink from inside the pool. I think that would be a very cool feature to add to The Sims 4. I guess these two things don't really go hand in hand because you probably couldn't slot this to a curved section, but you know what I mean. I would love to have them both as options. And then kind of thinking more about hotel rooms and build items and furniture, there's a few things that I've noticed about a lot of hotel rooms in real life. First of all, they often have like kind of funky patterned carpet. I would say they almost always have kind of bold patterned carpet. This is kind of gross to think about, but I assume that's probably to help with hiding stains easier. A lot of the hotel rooms also have kind of interesting wall features. Maybe it's wallpaper, maybe it's paneling, or like really high headboards. They also often have relatively generic artwork on the walls, which is good for The Sims because we need like simple generic stuff that we can use anywhere. They also often have really nice, like good curtains, and there's usually two kinds. There's like a sheer panel and a blackout panel, and they oftentimes will cover the full wall. I'll show you a picture in a second. And they always have white sheets and white bedding, maybe with some sort of decor, like a decorative pillow or a decorative blanket, but the sheets are always white because that way they can bleach it. So to give you an example, this hotel room has all of those things that I mentioned. We've got funky carpet, we have two headboards, there's like one tall one here, but also some wall paneling almost to frame both the beds. The bedding is all white, there isn't even throw pillows, and we have those curtains I was mentioning. They're like full panel curtains that cover the entire wall. The window probably stops like right here, but they have the curtains on the whole wall anyway. And I think that is a huge bonus for The Sims because we always need more curtains. So this hotel pack is a very good opportunity for more beds and more curtains. Two of my most requested items for this game. This next one is kind of more modern, but it has that same stuff I was talking about. We've got fancy curtains, again, two kinds with the sheer and the blackout panels. There's this really cool wall paneling in the back behind the bed. I also see a lot of like built-in furniture in these rooms, sort of like this, how we have an attached dresser and desk all along one big wall. Sometimes the nightstands are like built into the bed as well. This one is kind of an example. We have like a big main headboard behind both beds and a nightstand attached to it. We've got more funky patterned carpet. We've got some big wall curtains covering the whole wall. This is kind of that generic art I was talking about. It's a little bit blurry, but you see what I mean. This next one seems a little bit older to me, but again, with the funky carpet and funky curtains. The beds are still all white, but we also have some extra decorative stuff. A lot of hotel rooms also usually have a landline phone in them and often like their own air conditioning unit. You can see it back here behind the table. Those are both things I would love to see in this pack as well. It's fun to have things like AC units just to add some extra realism to rooms. And I really, really like the idea of landline phones. I doubt they would ever actually add those to The Sims 4 because the world as a whole is kind of moving away from them, but I would like it. So as far as new build items go, I'm kind of thinking it would be a main focus on bedroom and bathroom furniture. And obviously probably not much kitchen stuff, for example, because it's like a hotel pack. There would also probably be a lot of patio and outdoor furniture. I'm picturing a lot of these hotels would have pools, so there would be a lot of things like that. Maybe some new hot tub items. Perhaps in-ground hot tubs could be an addition here in this pack. Obviously a lot of carpet and wallpaper happening here. Maybe some new curtain options that are similar to the Desert Luxe kit, where we have like one panel and then a fake item that looks like a curtain rod, so you can try and attach them. I'm guessing a bunch of new beds would be happening in this pack. Obviously things like artwork and mirrors, other generic hotel decor. Also probably a furniture set or two to use for the lobby. So things like the front desk, maybe some living room furniture for the lobby. And a lot of times in expansion packs, we get like two styles of decor happening. So for example, in University, we got that like IKEA dorm furniture, but also kind of like an antique style of furniture. So in this case, I think we would have probably like a more modern, contemporary, like fancy hotel furniture, but also some like cheaper motel type furniture. Maybe it's stained, stuff like that. And maybe also just like a generic, like regular hotel furniture. A lot of that could probably be achieved with swatches too. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't think the beds are gonna be that fancy. Like most of the beds are probably gonna be plain white, or they at least all need to have a plain white swatch, and the interest is gonna come in with the headboards and things like that. I'd be curious to see what they would end up actually making if this pack became real. It's probably clear that I'm most excited about building these hotels, but in this vision, you could also visit them. You could take your Sims on vacation there instead of just owning it. Again, I'm picturing it working very similar to Dine Out, where you can own a restaurant or you could just go to a restaurant. So I was kind of daydreaming about what sorts of amenities and activities they could offer at these hotels. And there's the obvious ones that you could like place in build mode, like hot tubs, whatever. But I'm wondering if the hotels could also be hosting like activities. Maybe they could have art classes. They kind of taunted us with that and Growing Together by implying that the rec center would have art classes, and then it doesn't. You can like pretend it has art classes, but what if they had actual ones? Because in Spa Day, we have those yoga classes you can join. So it'd be kind of cute if they had like an art class you could join. Maybe they have live music happening by the pool. I feel like these places would also be well equipped to host actual events. If they're gonna have like buffet type rooms, you could easily host a wedding or a different kind of party here. And then I was thinking about, honestly, cruises a little bit. So what if the hotels had these like nightly parties or events at the building? I wrote down think cruise meets city living festival, so they could like change depending on the day. And maybe there's like different themed activities happening each night at the resort. I've been watching a lot of Disney vloggers recently. Don't judge me, I live in Orlando. I have a pass, okay? I deserve to know what's going on in my home. But at the Disney hotels, they'll have sometimes like movie nights by the pool with projectors. They have like s'more making by the fire pits, and they'll sell you little s'more kits. So I'm wondering if the hotels in the game could have little things like that. Nothing huge, but I like the idea of like a movie screen popping up and there being a movie night. Or if you could like encourage all the guests to come use the fire pit at the same time. I think one of the big criticisms of this pack would probably be like, why do we need this if we have vacation rentals already? I know, I'm like thinking up criticisms for an imaginary pack, but here's my thought process. I don't really like the vacation rentals in The Sims 4 because we can go on vacation, but you have to rent an entire house. And I don't really want to have an entire house. I want to have just one hotel room. Hotels are fun, and they also come with like the bonuses of all the things at the hotel, which is oftentimes better than what you could put in just one little house lot. It's also just more realistic for your average vacation, and I feel like it might end up being cheaper than renting an entire house. And it makes more sense if you only have like 2 Sims going on a honeymoon. I'd rather have just one fancy hotel room than like an entire house that also has 3 extra bedrooms. And the other thing is like the game pack versus expansion pack. Like what would this be? Because I think in my dream scenario, it's an expansion pack just because I want more out of it. But they could probably get away with this being just a game pack. It's kind of hard to visualize because obviously Dine Out is a game pack and the whole thing is just running a restaurant. So this could be a game pack where the whole thing is just running a hotel. But then I think that the different lots that you can run are oftentimes better when they're included in expansion packs. Like I think the retail system and the vet system is a lot better and more fun to run than Dine Out is. And also Dine Out didn't come with a world, and I would love for this pack to have a world. So I was kind of thinking about additional features that might come with it if it were an expansion pack. And the first one, I know we're talking about like not wanting vacation rentals, but what if you could like own a second home as a feature of this pack? I don't really agree with the concept of owning second homes in real life. life. But I think like maybe the land grabs could have a vacation home that belongs to them instead of just renting one occasionally. Because how cool would it be if like the land grabs had a default like second lot that they still own in the new world? And I think that this could be a useful idea for storytelling too. Maybe you have a second house in your family and it's grandpa's house. Or like, could you use that second lot not as a home, but as something else? Like, what if your sim owns 2 lots and they live on one, but the other one is their art studio or like their music studio? Use it for skill building or their like work from home jobs. Just having my sims own a second place feels like it could be used for a lot of different things. And I think that kind of fits into the concept of this pack. I'm realizing that I didn't finish typing on this page. I had other ideas and then my cat she's back there, by the way. And then my cat distracted me and I stopped typing. But I was also thinking about more elder activities. So things like shuffleboard maybe could be a fun option. Also scrapbooking. I was gonna add a whole section about an updated photography system to this, which is where the scrapbooking comes in, because I liked the idea of better vacation photos. I keep pitching this concept of better photography systems. I tried to say it for Growing Together too. I made a whole video about my ideas for a Generations pack, and then we got Growing Together, but it didn't have the photographs. I'm always wanting more things for elders to do, and I think that like that is maybe a good option. And I just want better in-game pictures so bad, and I think that like going on vacation in a vacation pack is a good time to get better pictures. And obviously I was talking about the resort activities like art classes, live music, stuff like that. Ignore this page, it's bad and not finished. I didn't realize. Okay, so the next concept is the new world. Now, this is one of those things that I don't really have a clear image of what it would be in my head. I have a very clear idea of how building hotels would work, but like where the hotels are, I am not so sure. For the most part, I like pretty much every world we get, so I don't really have like a serious preference. And the thing is, I mostly want to add resorts to other worlds. Like, I'm not really dreaming of a specific kind of world that is only resorts. I want to put a bed and breakfast in Henford-on-Bagley and have like a big hotel in Tartosa and make a ski resort in Mount Komorebi. But I still want the pack to have a world because I want to have more space to live. I'm not really dreaming of an island world. I know I talk a lot about Island Paradise from The Sims 3, but I don't really want to recreate that exactly. I want a different kind of resort pack and world. The problem is, I'm not really sure if this would or should be a game pack or an expansion pack. And a game pack, again, might not have a world. It would be a lot smaller world for sure, at least. Whereas the expansion pack would definitely have a world and it would be bigger. So that's kind of throwing me off. But I did have a couple of ideas, specifically about mountains again. I was thinking about like, where do people have resorts? And if it's not a beach, a mountain makes sense, but maybe like a Colorado theme instead. I think we have a lot of California themed packs, which makes sense, I guess, because the Sims team mostly lives in California, but I'd like to get away from that a little bit. A lot of the Sims packs are also very America-centric. Again, makes sense because the Sims team is in America, but it would be cool to have something somewhere else instead. I was thinking about Australia. I haven't been to Australia, but it might be a cool concept for a Sims world, so that's an idea. But really, there's like thousands of places that it could be that would be good, so I don't really know. And I unfortunately have to throw Florida into the mix. Here's the thing. It fits the like resort world theme to a T. Like if there's gonna be a world that is specifically dedicated to having resorts, it would be Florida. I live there. I live in Orlando. I live in a theme park resort destination. So if there's gonna be any world that is only resorts, I hate to say it, it would be here. But the thing is, I don't think it's a good idea to base anything off Florida right now. I don't think anyone wants anything to do with Florida right now. I don't. I fundamentally disagree with like everything about Florida right now. The politics especially, but like it probably wouldn't be good to do that. So anyway, I don't know where it would be. That's the point I'm trying to make. I had some ideas, but anywhere is good. Again, most of my thoughts are more about build mode. This is a picture of the Island Paradise world that we got, which I must say is so cool. I don't want to recreate this. I don't want an island thing, but there's a couple of features about this that I think are really fun and worth noting. First of all, you could live on houseboats. You can see one right here, but there's like little docks, and the dock is kind of like the lot, and then you could build a houseboat, and it was just like a big floating square essentially, but you could move it around. We do not have anything like that in this game, and I don't think we ever will get that in The Sims 4, but it was cool. And there's a lot of cool parts of this area. You can see kind of down here, there's like a cliff where one of the hotels was. There was some beachside hotels. So whatever the world ends up being, it would be cool if there was like a couple different sections of it. I'm actually gonna compare it to Mount Hammurabi again quickly because I think it's quite cool how there's a mountain, snowy part, there's like a downtown part, and the environment of both these areas is quite different. So in the new world, if we had something like this where there's like a beach section, there's like a cliffside mountain section, I think that would be nice because then you could have a beach hotel, you could have a mountain cabin hotel, all in the same area. It kind of lends itself to more different build styles, which, you know, makes Australia kind of make sense because it's huge. You can't really make that in The Sims, but if we tried to do something inspired by, you could like pull from different parts of it and have that all in the same area. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But does that make sense at least? Like my desire to have dramatically different styles in one world. We almost even kind of have that in this world. Like up here, there's a mountain, down here, there's a beach. So if we could just recreate that, but without the island part, that would be great. But that, my friends, brings us to the end of my presentation. Now, I did brainstorm a few ideas for the name of this pack. I'll go through those now. First of all, we have The Sims 4 Resort Living, Get to Hotels, Discover Vacation, Resort Lifestyle, Vacation Together, Resort Escape. I like that one. The Sims 4 Resort Retreat, which I also like. I also really enjoyed Journey to Hotels. We have Realm of Resorts, Dream Hotel, My Hotel Stories, and I think my favorite, My Second Vacation Stuff, because we already have vacation rentals. I guess, I mean, it'd be like my fourth vacation stuff because it outdoor retreat, jungle adventure, snowy escape, this pack. But those were my ideas. There's some promising ones in there, and they are all almost exact copies of existing pack names. So the Sims team's gonna like them, surely. They already use something just like it. Okay, well, I think on that note, I'm gonna end this video right here. I have officially talked too much about this imaginary Sims pack. I mentioned how I made videos like this for a Generations pack and a horse pack, so I'll link those down below in case you want to go back and watch my ideas, especially now that we actually have packs like that. It's kind of fun to go back and compare what I was talking about. I really would like to have hotels in The Sims 4. I love the idea of running and visiting a hotel. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Like, does this excite you at all? It does make me a little bit nervous, like knowing how Dine Out runs sometimes. I can only imagine this would be similar, but I still just love the idea of it so much. And don't get your hopes up, by the way. The Sims team didn't make horses because I made a joke video about them. They were probably already working on horses when I made that video. We just didn't know. I'm not gonna like sway the team by making a video like this. They plan stuff years in advance. Like, this is just for fun. But thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about hotels, and I will catch you all tomorrow. Okay? Bye, everybody. Oh, my cat has been sitting behind me sleeping peacefully this entire time. If you saw like movement in the back and it alarmed you, don't worry, it was just a cat.